Hi everyone, and welcome to the seventh part of our tutorial series tyFLOW for ARCHVIZ. In this one, I would like to show you how you can quickly animate some trees or plants that you have in your scene, such as this one, which I have animated using tyFLOW in 3ds Max. So let me just jump into 3ds Max. Here I already have imported that tree model from Chaos Cosmos library, which is that oil palm tree, and I turned that to editable poly, and then now we have to go and separate it and prepare the stuff that we need for the tyFLOW setup. For this, I'm going to just select it and then go to the element selection tool and just select these branches here. Make sure that all of them are selected. Then we can go to detach and detach them as a clone. We call them 3.branches. Now I can go and hide the actual tree, and I am left with these branches only. And this is actually what I need for the tyFLOW. Now I can go and add a tyFLOW object into my scene and then go to the settings. In my time step, I'm going to set it to 1/4 for now, and we may have to change it later on depending on what we get as the result. So here we're going to start with bird skeleton. Drop it just into your editor and then pick that branches here. Now we can go and hide them as well. So this bird skeleton just took our mesh and turned it to so-called skeleton. And if you see that a little bit closer, you will see that it created some segments. We're going to see them better when we go and scale them a little bit. So I'm going to drop scale operator into here, go and uncheck uniform scaling and set the scaling for the z-axis just to 98 or something. So we have slightly gap between them, so they're not sticking to each other. And this is our skeleton. Now we're going to turn them into physics shapes. Just drop physics shapes operator into here. Now when I go and move my CTI, you're going to see that thing drops and falls apart. So next thing is binding that segments together. And when we go closer and we go to show bindings, you're going to see that it binds them really up to this point, which we don't want to. I just want the bottom part to get bind and then each segment. So this distance is actually too high. So we can scroll down and go to the proximity bind settings and set the distance to just 2. And that will just bind this area which the branches are closer to each other, and then each single segment here. As you can see, there is that binding between them. And this is exactly what we need. The next thing is avoiding that fall and falling apart and stuff. So for this, we're going to send the particles to a new event, and we're going to use property test, and we're going to switch that test type to position Z. And as you can see, it changes the color, means it is already in this event. I'm going to change it to red and bring down the value here to maybe 45. So just the bottom part of it is affected and not the whole thing. As soon as they are in this event, I go and use a physics switch and switch them to kinematics up here. And that will avoid this falling and reacting to the gravity and everything. So everything stays in place and the branches are just moving around as they should. Now this movement, what you see here, is not because of any forces like wind or noise or something. This is just because of the gravity. So as soon as I move that, those physics shapes react to the gravity, and fall down and start to wobble around a little bit. So this is what happens. Now I'm gonna stabilize them with a slow operator. So I'm gonna drop a slow operator in here, set the value to 9, and this should just make him settle much faster. So as you can see, so after about 2 seconds, which is 50 frames here in my case, you don't see anything wobbling around. So now we can go and add our force into our event, into the first one, and maybe give it some wind in the z-axis. So set the z-axis to 1, which is set by default. And then the strength, I'm going to change it to 1.5 or something. So we move that, it should push the branches upwards a little bit, which it does. And now I'm going to go down to the noise settings and change it to Perlin. Strength maybe 1.8 or something. Frequency 0.15. And I'm going to set the scale to something like 20. You're going to see the pattern that appears here and shows you how your noise is actually working. So now when we move it, after those 2 seconds, the rest of the movement is actually done by the force and the noise and everything that we just set up. So now let me go and simulate it to the end. Shouldn't take that long. There we go. Now when we go and set this guy to real time and play it back, you're gonna see how it actually moves around. So now let's say we are happy with the movement of it and we want to transfer this movement to our actual tree. So for this, we go and just turn on our tree mesh. We can turn off tyFLOW. Just turn it off, don't disable, that's different. So just then select your tree model. In the modifier list, you can scroll down and search for tyParticleSkin, which is this modifier here. And then in its settings, go down for the particle skin and select your tyFLOW setup. So this will now use that setup and transfer the animation or the movement of it to our mesh. So when we go and play that back, that is what we see. Now it looks all good so far, but if I move in a little bit, you're going to see that some of the leaves will start to stick together as soon as we move it. You see that here, for example, these areas are sticking together and we have to fix those as well. So the first thing is going back to the tyFLOW, and in the time steps, reduce it to 1/6 or 1/8 or whatever works best. So that fixes it a little bit. And then select the tree, go to the tyParticleSkin settings here, bring up the fall off to about 45, and that will get rid of that distortion. You can bring down the distance so it is maybe higher. You know, a little bit. Yeah, that works better. So increase it instead of decreasing it, and that looks much better now. So I don't see any issues yet. So let's go and play it back again, see what we got. There we go. So now in order to see the real speed of it, I would go and just export a preview of that scene. Even we set it to the real time and etc., it will actually never show you the real speed of it. It can really jump over some frames and stuff. So I'm going to use the type preview, which is coming with the tyFLOW as well, and then just create a preview. And here it is with the actual speed. And at the end, when you're happy with the results, you can create all your assets around it, render it out, and you should have a nice animation pretty quickly done, thanks tyFLOW's skeleton birth. And yeah, take it from there. You can change the intensity of your wind effects and play around with all those settings. So you can go to your setup here and really just go and play around with that settings here. I mean, when I go and set the amount for the x-axis also to 1 and maybe bring up the strength to number 3, so gonna have some stronger wind here, then it messes up stuff, but just to show you what you can do with it, and try to find the best settings that is working for your needs and for your scene. I hope this is helpful and useful to you, and I'm wishing you a great and successful time. Bye bye.